So you've clicked on this video because you want to make homemade pasta. And you're probably wondering, what in the world does this white kid with a southern accent know anything about making pasta? Well, nothing. And the reason for that is because this is a beginner pasta recipe. The idea of this today is that you and me are going to make a homemade pasta with no machines, no extra materials, keeping everything very simple and kind of a rustic style. And this is kind of typically known as the Italian grandma style of making pasta. You just have to use a little bit of time and technique, and then you will have some nice homemade pasta. With that being said, let's dive into this recipe. Alright, to start things off, you're going to need 2 cups or 420 grams of all-purpose flour. Next, set aside 2 eggs in a bowl and 6 eggs in a bowl, and we're going to take the 6 egg yolks and put them with the 2 eggs. So the best way to do this is to just reach in and grab one of the yolks and then toss it back and forth between your hands, and then go ahead and set that over into the other bowl. Then just repeat this process until all of your eggs are transferred. I like to save my egg whites for some protein French toast later in the week, so go ahead and grab that, cover it with plastic wrap, and set it in the fridge. Alright, back to the flour. We're going to dump this out on our counter, and we're making this pasta Italian grandma style. So we're just going to dump this out. Alright, form your flour into a mound and slowly kind of push your flour outward, and you're going to essentially form a moat out of this. So the goal is to have a big enough surface for all of your eggs to fit, and you want to get this as wide as possible, but keep it relatively thick around the edges to prevent spillage. Before placing our eggs in our moat all willy-nilly, we need to add a few ingredients and go ahead and mix these together. So we're adding in 14 grams of olive oil, or 1 tablespoon, as well as a strong pinch of kosher salt. Now we're just going to essentially just mix our egg mixture together, and the reason that we're doing this is in case when we pour this into our moat and it ever breaks, all of the ingredients are already combined and you can kind of throw that flour on it quickly and it all just comes together and kind of saves it. But if you do everything correctly, you won't have to worry about that. Next, we are going to dump these eggs right into our moat, and as you can see, we don't have any breakage so far, so far so good. Alright Mason, calm down, calm down. Then around the edges, you're going to kind of scrape some of the flour into the middle. Now you're going to slowly whisk in this little bit of added in flour and just try to hydrate as much of it as you can. Then continue to just pull in flour until it becomes kind of thicker like this and you don't have any fear of it running all over your counter, and you can just go ahead and pull the rest of the flour to the middle. Now you should have a bit of a shaggy mess, and that's okay. This will come together into a ball. Don't be tempted to add any water just yet. Just kind of work this egg into the flour that's remaining on the table, and it will eventually mix. Just keep working at it. After bringing mine into a dough ball, I can definitely confirm that this is a little bit dry, so if you are going to add water, add a very, very small amount and then continue to roll. With just that little bit of water, my dough ball came out to look like this, and now we're going to knead this for 10 minutes, and I kind of like to use this cross pattern as a beginner, and this is going to make your dough a lot more easy to work with and make it have that nice bouncy texture that you all know in pasta. If you don't knead this, it's not going to work. And one of the biggest problems that beginners make when making pasta is they under-knead their dough, and you'll feel it once it's ready, but kind of work this with your hands for 8 to 10 minutes. It doesn't really matter how you work the dough, but your goal is to kind of develop those gluten strands in the dough that's going to make this dough a little bit more resistant and kind of stretch back when it's done. And as a beginner pasta dough roller, I found that this method is the best, where you kind of switch hands back and forth. The other method that I like is to roll this out into a long log. Alright, in all seriousness, it should come together into a ball like this, and you want to let this rest for about 30 minutes, so we're going to cover this with plastic wrap. So we're just going to tuck this little guy in, give him some pats of encouragement, a goodnight kiss, and let him sit for 30 minutes. Aww. And 30 minutes has passed by, and as you can see, our dough is much more relaxed and it's going to be way easier to work with. Wasting no time, we are going to flatten this guy out. Now we are just going to essentially divide our dough ball into roughly 8 even pieces. It doesn't have to be exact here. Then lightly flour your work surface and we can begin rolling out one of our dough balls. And using a rolling pin, we are just going to very gently roll this out into a somewhat thin shape before folding it a certain way. So once you see it starting to form an oblong shape, take your dough and essentially kind of fold it like a letter. So fold it down on one side, take that other side, fold it across the top, and then you can flip it back over, and this will help you roll out a much more even shape with your pasta. This will help with cutting nice, long, even noodles in the future. Now, we are making this by hand and nothing is going to be perfect. So the ultimate goal here is to take all of your 8 mini dough balls and roll them out into as even as you can thin sheets. When you get done with a sheet, be sure that you go ahead and pull it up and then flour both sides. That way it won't stick to your countertop, and you can also stack these on top of each other. If you're wondering how thin your pasta should be, you should be able to hold it up and definitely see your hand through it. Pasta is going to swell up immensely once you cook it. It's going to take up some of that boiling water and expand. Once your pasta sheets have been completed, you can go ahead and kind of trim them up. That way they are more even rectangle shapes. And once they are rectangles, you can go ahead and cut your noodles into as thick or thin shapes as you like. I would say if you're going to want these to be thinner, don't go below a kind of fettuccine style thickness. I'm making mine a little bit thicker than that because one, it's going to hold sauce better and reduce the likelihood of my pasta breaking. Once your noodles have been completely cut out, you can go ahead and separate them in batches and lightly dust them with flour. This is going to help them stay separated. Pick them up and kind of pull that flour around the noodles, then just kind of shape them into these little cute mounds. And there you have homemade pasta. You didn't think I was going to create this without having a recipe, did you? What is this, amateur hour? Pfft. With our pasta, we are going to be making Cacio e Pepe. I'm sorry, Italians, for pronouncing that wrong, but I'm also going to pronounce this cheese wrong. This is Parmigiano Reggiano. So this is the cheese that we need for this dish, but Cacio e Pepe literally translates to cheese and pepper, so you need this Parmigiano Reggiano, black pepper, and 3 tablespoons of butter. Place a pot of water on the stove and season it with salt until it tastes like seawater. Now, you want to bring this up to a boil and then add in your homemade pasta. Homemade pasta cooks much faster than dehydrated pasta that you find in the store, so this is going to take 3 or 4 minutes. We are going to be cooking our pasta in the sauce, so I'm going to cook this for 3 minutes here and then let it finish cooking in the sauce. Be sure to reserve 3/4 of a cup or roughly 250 milliliters of your pasta water. Now we're adding our 3 tablespoons of butter into our pan to melt. Next, you can go ahead and add in all of your pasta. Now just kind of toss your pasta in this butter and it's going to help keep this pasta separated. Now if you were smart, you would have gone ahead and had all of your cheese nice and grated out and measured out, but me being me, I forgot. So I would suggest starting with 3/4 of a cup or 78 grams of this Parmigiano Reggiano. And the beauty of this dish is that you can add as much or little cheese as you want, but I would definitely recommend 3/4 a cup of this cheese to start with. Now go ahead and add in your pasta water. Then go ahead and mix this around as the cheese melts to emulsify this sauce and help it cling to the pasta. Now I'm plating this up and hitting it with a very generous amount of black pepper. In my opinion, with this dish, the black pepper is the star of the show, with the cheese kind of boosting it in the background a little bit. Take a moment to appreciate your homemade pasta and Cacio e Pepe. Alright everybody, my pasta dish is complete. I can smell the black pepper, I can smell the Parmigiano Reggiano. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Italians, don't get on my case. Alright, let's give this a quick taste test. First of all, black pepper. First of all, this video is focusing on the homemade pasta, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This pasta is definitely better than something that you could buy at the store. I don't know, it's got like a nicer, softer feel to it than something that I've had at the grocery store. Now the flavor of the dish itself, absolutely phenomenal. Simple ingredients, but it's, this is gonna sound dumb because that's what was in it, but buttery, cheesy, and a lot of black pepper, which I love black pepper, so fantastic to me. If you really love pasta, I highly recommend making this because, you know, it's an experience. One, it's going to teach you how much time actually goes into making pasta from scratch. That being said, this is a cool experience. If you are not into pasta and Italian cuisine, this is very time consuming to roll everything out. A pasta machine is definitely going to be your best route. If you've got a stand mixer, buy the attachment for it, or they also make them where you can clip them onto your counter. But if you don't have any of those things, you love pasta, and you want to learn how to make it by hand like we did today, by all means make this. It is a very good recipe, it's worth it. You know, I've had time-consuming recipes that weren't worth it in the past. This is worth it, so give it a try. Please drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel if you learned something new and want to see more of my videos. With that being said, I will see you all on the next one.